Well, hey, what's going on, guys? It is Dave Beaver, Pastor Dave Beaver. To some of you guys, it is Saturday afternoon. It's about 4 o'clock here in Ohio. And look, as a lot of times when things happen around our country or around the world, a lot of times people will start blowing my inbox up. And they'll say, "Hey, Pastor Dave, what do you think about this?" Or, "Hey, Pastor Dave, what is a scripture that I should be reading concerning this?" Or, "Hey, Pastor Dave, what does do you think God thinks about this?" And all these different questions, right? And I haven't said anything right now. I've been um, very quiet on the topic because I've learned that sometimes if I speak too quickly based on emotion, I may miss details, right? But at the same time, I didn't want to just be like everyone else and talk on the topic at hand. Um, there's a lot of opinions that have been shared. There's a lot of good things that have been said. There's a lot of change that is needed. Um, but can I be real honest with you? All the opinions and all the stances of anyone and everyone for me were completely secondary to grieving. I'll be real honest, man. My heart hurt thinking of a little kid, right? I have a 10-year-old son. My youngest is 10. I get to be around, youth sports, coaching jujitsu, coached youth wrestling, coached football. And kids are innocent, man, right? It doesn't matter. Sometimes they might have good parents, bad parents, whatever parents, but children, dude, are just they're pure, they're innocent, they're blind to how evil the world is. They are, dude, ice cream's a big deal, and their toys are a big deal, and even playground, recess at school's a big deal, and pizza's a big deal, and just they're so innocent, right? And to be honest with you, the grieving part was to think of just some little innocent kid who went to school, was doing nothing wrong, and the evilness of this world swerved into their life and ended it. And so for several days, I just wanted to pray, to be honest with you. I wanted to be quiet. I wanted to be prayerful. I wanted to mourn. Death changes. Listen, some of you know this. Some of you know this. Death changes a person forever. Rather, you have had someone near you be killed, um, they've lost life. You maybe are in a position in your life where you've had to take another person's life. And PTSD is a real deal. Death changes things, death changes you forever. And, as a pastor, I have been with families that have lost their children to cancer, uh, to being hit by a car, uh, to tragedy, and it's devastating, right? Those parents, it's devastating, and so I wanted to keep my mouth shut, and I just wanted to be prayerful, and I wanted to just be conscious, and I just wanted to, man, just grieve the loss of life, and but my inbox just continued to fill up with people asking me, "What do you think? What do you think, Pastor Dave? What do you think?" And here's what I think. I think the world is a very evil place. It is a very selfish place. And unfortunately, we as men and women have to be prepared to be peaceful, to be prayerful, but we also must be prepared to take action and certain action when it is required, when it is necessary, when it is reasonable. And we must be willing to defend the innocence of life. Now, I don't really care if you're pro gun, against guns, whatever. But what I can tell you is that every celebrity and every politician and every person of importance are protected with someone with a gun, period. And therefore, the most innocent people on the planet, children, for God's sakes, we have a responsibility to make sure that a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old can go to school and be innocent and pure and protected from the vile nature, the evil intended deeds of men and women in this world. Now, death changes a man and a woman forever. I do believe in peace. I believe we should pray for peace. I believe we should desire peace, but I believe we should prepare for war when it is necessary. I believe in faith, trusting God. I also believe in violence because I believe that God has given you and me brain and integrity, and we should train and study and show ourselves approved that if a day of evil should rise, if a day of evil should arise like it did in Texas and like it has done multiple times in this country, that the men and the women of peace also should have and possess the ability for true violence when necessary. Because here's the thing. There's a bunch of people with opinions that said, well, I would have done this. I would have done this. I would have done this. You don't know what you'd have done. Let me tell you something. I work around and I am around a bunch of people in my life that they're rough and they're tough and they're gangster and they got gun collections and they go to the range and they shoot, but they have never, ever, ever, some of them have, but majority of people you know and I know have not been in a position where there is a live, breathing, living person on the other end that has intent to kill you or kill others, and you must take their life. Now, let me be real honest with you. There's a lot of opinions. I would have, I should have, we would have, this, that. You weren't there, so you don't know what you'd have done. Now, some of you do know what you've done because you've done it. Some of you do know exactly what you would have achieved, exactly tactically, strategically. You know exactly how you to move because you have studied and shown yourself approved. You are trained. You are a man or a woman of peace, but you also have a pulse inside you that is absolutely necessary and ready to conduct violence, justified violence, if need be, on behalf of the innocent. You would know that your actions are reasonable, that your actions are required and necessary, and they are accountable, and you would conduct exactly what you know how to do. There's a lot of people with a lot of opinions about guns and this and this. Can I tell you something? Gun control doesn't do anything for criminals. Listen, taking guns, banning guns, not letting people buy guns, that's fine. But criminals don't go to the local gun store and buy a gun. They steal them, they barter for them, they trade for them. And evil is the world's greatest problem. Selfishness, hatefulness. People are going to continue to be mentally unstable, socially unstable, selfish, jealous, violent, and vile people. That is the truth of this world. And today there are 19 kids and 2 teachers dead. And I will say it, I don't care. I'm 100% on board. I support the military. I support the police department. I do support law enforcement. I always have. I always will. I'm down. I believe in it. Do I think that there were errors, critical errors made? Yeah, absolutely. I sure do. And to those parents and to those that stepped up and breached that school and went in and ran to the roar, right? They ran to the roar. They ran to the roar of violence to save and protect not only their kids, but other people's kids. I have respect for that. That's the right thing to do. That's my opinion. That's the right thing to do. But can we be honest with you today? Like every school in America is a target. Every church in America is a target. Every supermarket, every mall, every shopping center that continues to put up for good citizens not to carry a gun on their property continue to perpetuate the bad guy who don't look at your sign to come in with a gun and then to kill innocent victims, maybe even children and teachers that did not even have or possess the ability to defend themselves. My personal opinion. I'm not just going to gripe about it. Here's what I believe. Every school in America should be on constant lockdown. Any person that comes into the school should have to produce an ID, that you have to go through proper background checks. It doesn't matter. Even if your kid goes there, if you don't have the credentials to be at the school, you don't go to the school. That's it. Why would we can't circumvent the process? We need to have better processes in place. And I understand we can pray and we can trust God, church. That's fine. I trust God. There's 2 things I trust: the holy word of God and the 9mm with 17 rounds that I carry. That's just the God's honest truth, because I am down to give faith. I am down to give hope. I'm down to give glory. I'm down to give good news. But if a violent man or woman should arise, I do believe that the rightful and righteous action is to protect, guard, and protect the innocent. And if we eliminate people from being able to guard and protect the innocent, then we will continue in this vile, broken world to have victims like these 19 kids and these 2 teachers. And there's a bunch of people that are talking. They don't really care. They care about their politics. I've taken time to just generally grieve for these lost children and their families. And I get it. People say, "Oh, Pastor Dave, oh, you're..." No, I'm not a pacifist. I'm not. And if you think that Jesus was a pacifist and you think the Bible was supports being a pacifist, I think you're wrong. Okay, you're just wrong. And you can debate with yourself. I won't even debate with you on it. Bottom line, I do believe that we are not holding hands, singing, blessed assurance, why someone murders my family or goes on a murdering spree of our churches and our children and our schools. No way. I think there's a response that is right and righteous. And I think this country is on the clock. I think this country's on the clock. I think people who have the power to do right better step up and do right. And to the men and women who already know, if you know, you know. I can't convince you. I cannot tell you. I can't describe it to you. I can't explain it to you. Most people in this country, listen, some of you are going to think I'm being arrogant, narcissistic, whatever. Get in line. Most of you in this country have never, ever experienced true violence. You have experienced some angry people, some upset people, maybe some bar fights and some scuffles, but you have not. Most people, not all of you, I respect those and don't think I'm disrespecting you, but most people have never encountered true violence. And there's a big difference between true violence and a disagreement, a scuffle, a fist fight, an argument where things get out of hand. I really think personally, grieving the loss of these 19 kids and these 2 teachers is important. But what do we do to empower, to equip, to train, to better prepare? Because guess what? There'll be another one. That's the sad thing today at 4:18 p.m. There's going to be another one. Listen, it is 4:18 p.m. on Saturday. There's already the wheels turning in someone's unstable mind who might make your family or my family a victim. My preference is that we would stop the threat in its tracks by whatever means necessary. And sometimes de-escalation and talking them down is not even an option. If you come in blazing, then we better be ready to blaze back. And those actions would be righteous, they would be right, they would be reasonable, they would be accountable, and they would be necessary. Or are you going to stand there? Should we say the bad guy's going to follow the rules? They don't follow the rules. They never have, they never will. So we're not going to punish the good guys. We have got to empower the good guys to stop the threat. I think the solution is, I think there should be armed individuals at every school in America. I think schools should be locked down, not to feel like prisons, but to feel like safe centers. That's sad, right? Well, we can get over being sad, and we got to do something about the problem, like keep our kids safe. There's no way that a parent should have to sit down with their 10-year-old and talk about going to school and their lockdown policies to explain that the gunman got locked down in the classroom with the kids where they're supposed to lock down and be safe. A lot of errors, a lot of critical tactical errors. Somebody has to own those mistakes. But there'll be another one. If we don't change our thinking, our broken thinking, we must go on the offense now. We must go on the offense now, and guard and protection must become a priority for our schools and our churches and our daycares and our centers and our shopping centers and places. I get you don't like it, but guess what? This is not 1940. This is not 1950. It is not 1960. It is the year 2022, and this is your and my and our family's reality. So we must adapt or die. We must adapt or die. You want to know my opinion? You asked. I'm sharing it today because you asked. Hundreds of people have sent me a message from around the country. A lot of times people send me messages that are criticizing me and knocking me and talking trash about me. And I'm sure that after this video, here comes another slew of them. And like a good friend of mine says, he says, well, man, Dave Beaver, you do put yourself out there. You are very public out there. Stay above the fray. Yes, sir. I'll stay above the fray. I've patiently prayed and grieved the loss of these kids and their families. Know they're hurting. You could give them $2 billion. You can never give them back their baby. That's sad, man. But we have got to do something in this country because there will be another one. There will be another one until we do something different. Amen. Here's what I think. I think loss of life ever is tragic. But I also think if you're going to disarm the good guys, then all you do is empower the bad guys. They're not playing by your rules. They don't care about your policy. They don't care about your procedure. They don't care about your politicians. They are going to do what criminals do. They're going to be evil. They're going to be vile. They're going to be violent. And guess what? We can pray about it, but sometimes we got to be about it. And if you know, then you know. There's a lot of people out there, man, saying what you would have done. You don't know what you'd have done because you've never been in a situation where it was life or death, you or them. And if you've never been in that situation, you can have some ideas, but I promise you there are far more people. There are far more people that will go into flight mode versus fight mode. And if you don't believe me, you look what happened. There was a lot of officers there that day, and no disrespect to law enforcement, but there was a lot of officers there that day that were not trained for that moment. They've never been in that moment, and they went into flight in frozen mode, just like a lot of human beings do. Some went into fight mode, and there was less deaths because of them. It's a tragic situation, but my take is there will be more if we do not step up and go on the offense as a country, as a community, and as a society to prepare ourselves for peace and hope and joy, but to prepare ourselves for if a day of violence should arise again, and it will. We have got to be able to eliminate the threat. That's my take. You asked. There it is. God bless you. May we pray and God help us.